All right, so just as we were talking about yesterday, we would continue with the inheritance, then work our way through the others that we couldn't tackle yesterday. Okay, so to begin with, let's say if I say the word inheritance, like what's really the first thing that comes to mind? Like what's the thing that comes to your mind? What's your understanding of inheritance so far? Anyone could take the mic and say something.
Okay. Hello.
Yes, please go ahead.
It means to be given, to be handed something down to you.
Amazing.
Something
Right.
being
To
handed down to you, or a
that's good.
property or a property being handed down to you, or any valuable
Oh,
being handed down to you.
okay. So it's any valuable thing handed over to another person, if I should put it this way, right? Inheritance is any valuable, let's say, it's any valuable possession uh, handed over to another person, if we should say, or we can say passed on to another person, right? Okay. Does anyone have any other thing to add to this, or a different explanation that they would like to bring up? Okay. Maybe use this one or this one. Oh, okay. And maybe if this environment is a little bit new, you can see that there's the hand called the raise, where you can use to raise your hand if that's what you would like to do as well. There's a lot of things that you can do, or you can use the Q&A session as well to ask questions if that's what you'd like to do, so that it doesn't get lost in the chat. Okay. So we just mentioned that inheritance is anything is of value that is handed over from one person to another, um, and that's like valid, right? So when we talk about object-oriented programming, that is one of the things that really make it work well or make it what it is, right? The fact that we can write code that someone else can reuse and not have to start everything from scratch. Okay, so for instance, yesterday we worked with a student class. Okay, so what can really happen is that we can use different things right from within that class. And then we can also bring in something from another place, or we could also even create a new something else that depends on that class, right? So here, before we actually go into like the inheritance from the way that we are going to do it, I'd like to share, let's say, one thing that actually inherits from something else that maybe we are not that we've seen but not really seeing well. So let's say when I come to this side, right, I'll go to the Python um, interactive console. Then here's the thing here, right? We have some functions that we can work with, right? We have its instance, and we also have its subclass, its different things, right? So let's say that I would like to find a few things. You see the Boolean thing that we have here, what is the false and then the true. We we understand that true is actually one, right? So let's say if I do true equal one, it says one. Or if I say true equal zero, it says false, right? So we understand that true is one and false is zero, right? So this guy over here at this point is using some numbers. And if we talk about numbers, which data type are we talking about? If you would like to answer.
Thanks.
Integers, right? So this particular Boolean data type that we have is actually sort of inheriting some properties from the integer class, right? So we can verify that with, first of all, let's check the instance of this guy. Right? So we can say its instance of, let's say, uh, the So first of all, we have to give it the thing that we are looking for, just this, true. And then we would also ask it whether it's part of the integer class. Right. And you can see that yes, it is actually part of the integer class. Or let's say it's an instance of the integer class. But then let's see if we do whether it's an instance of the string class, it says no, right? So what we mean by an instance of that is, let's say if I do something like a is equal to 10, right? A at this point is an instance of the integer class. So the Boolean or the bool has some properties that is coming from the integer, right, or the int class, right? But then if we do the type for the, let's say true, for instance, you can see that it is coming from the, or it's in the bool class or the Boolean, right? But then there's also another one that we can look at, which is called a subclass, right? So we can check whether something is a subclass of something, right? So let's check that, right? So if we say subclass, that means that there's going to be a superclass, right? So the superclass is going to be, let's say, the parent, and then the sub is the child. Okay, so if we are asking whether this is a subchild, well, we can ask whether true is a subchild of the integer. Oops, sorry. My bad. Okay, let me do a quick help on this command over here, just to get the order in which it's supposed to be. Okay, so I would have to pass in the class. Okay, so you can see that CLS thing that we did yesterday, and then also another something here like that. Right? So what it does is that it takes let's say this value and that value. Right? So basically, I would have to pass in two classes. So what I would have to do, I think, is to rather use the class itself, the bool, right? So I had to use the bool, right? So you remember that CLS, it works on the class. So now I can see that the Boolean is actually part, or is a subclass of the integer. What if I swap this and then ask whether the integer is a subclass of the Boolean? You can see that this is false, right? Because the integer is actually the parent of the Boolean, and not the other way around. The Boolean is subclass, or is a child to the integer, but then the integer is the parent, right? So sometimes if you are trying to figure out how the inheritance is working, or who is inheriting from who, these functions are going to be useful. And also, you can see that like when I wasn't able to find out how to use a command at that point, I had to look it up. So if you're working with something, you can't find it, please look it up. And most of the time, you can find it right from here without having to Google it. So be using these things. Okay, so now we have seen that some things are already being inherited from some place. So this is not something new to Python. It already exists, right? We already inherit things from Python already, or we have data types that are already inheriting things from Python. So now the thing that we would also need to do or to learn, as we have seen so far, that inheritance is anything that is of value that is handed down to us. What if we could also do the same thing? Now we have a class called a student, which is really able to, let's say, like guess the name of the person, their age, their course, and their cohort, right? So currently we are only keeping these values, and then let's say that we would like to keep a specific kind of student, right? So we have let's say what we might call a base, or our super class. So when you hear me say like a super class, or the parent class, or the base class, we are really talking about the let's say the OG or the person who starts, always who is at the top of the chain, right? So we have a students class which is doing these things. It's able to handle a few things, right? So yesterday we saw that it is able to do a few things here. So uh, it is able to return a string representation of the students in a nice way. It's able to allow the students to defer, and also it is able to update the threshold of the students or for the whole student body, and also a way that we can use to check whether something is a captain's log or something like that, right? So I was thinking if we could have rather changed this so that we would use something else, but I think we would leave it as it is and rather think through something to work with it, right? So I'm thinking, what if we can have, let's say, a specific student, which is like like a specific kind of students, maybe for what we are trying to work with, right? So um, since we've all been students before, like in the fraternity of students or being a student, or let's say studenthood, um, what categories of students do you think we can maybe go further into, right? So let's say I have all students, and then you see that in schools we have, let's say, a specific group of students who do something like that or those kind of things. So can we have few ideas on like specific kinds of students that we can look at, and let's say see how we can model those students as well, right? So uh, I could call names like maybe anyone else can uh, maybe own up and then say something for us. Basically, I'm asking for let's say do you know of specific kinds of students that we could talk about? For now, you don't worry about the coding part of it yet. We're just talking about the students. Yes, class.
Um,
Yes, please, class.
we could talk about like remote students and on-campus students.
Okay, so okay, type of students. Okay, remote students, and then uh, on-campus students. Okay,
Maybe full-time students, part-time students.
full-time students. That's part-time. Okay, thanks.
As like the part-time students are different kinds. Maybe full-time students full-time students attend the full session, the normal session, maybe Monday to Fridays, and then part-time maybe have work or other stuff to do. So maybe they have weekends or maybe evening classes.
Right, right. That's nice. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, we would definitely use that. Valentine.
I was thinking of serious and unserious students.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, serious students, the unserious students. Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah, it's very about saying something. It's already there. Uh, okay. I think we would work with these for now then. So we would definitely not, let's say, use all of these really at not all of them, right? But then let's say when talking about remote students, yeah, we can say that like they would have, let's say, something specific to them that makes them a little bit unique. That okay, well, maybe they have different times that they would come, or I mean, even like what they would use as their online studying material or like the online meeting places. And for those who are on campus, they could also be of something different, right? So let's say okay, can we standardize on, let's say, just the first two, remote students and on campus students, just so that we wouldn't have to do a lot of things over here. So let's do a little bit more brainstorm session here. So let's say when it comes to remote students, what do you think are the like the specific things that make them, let's say, different from other students, right? So here we are talking about their attributes, what makes them different. We know they are students, and then what makes these kinds of students different?
They are workers.
Okay, could be workers.
They are workers.
If the school
They are
have
mature
like
students.
if the school have like a facility or like a building or a structure where they don't attend like a in-person meeting or in-person class.
Yeah, could you say that again, Israel?
Okay, I mean like if the student don't attend in-person class.
Okay, okay. So like they don't let's say not on campus students, if I should say, right? Or
Yeah,
let's
yeah,
say
yeah, yeah,
okay,
yeah.
okay. Yeah, something.
They are online. I think they are online too.
Come again.
I think they are online. They have class online due to their work schedule.
Okay.
And because they are not most of them on main campus, so I think they are online due to their work schedule.
That's it. All right. Thank you. Yeah. Samson, you had your hand raised. Hello, Samson. Oops. Is it just me or because I can't hear you, Samson. I can
think
hear
it's his
some.
network.
Okay, probably. Okay. While we wait for him, let's take Valentine.
So they mostly deal with soft copies of lecture notes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So materials are soft copies.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So okay. So maybe one that I could also add is let's say the platform used for learning. Right. So we understand that they learn online, but then do they have, let's say, a specific platform they use to learn online? All right. So for remote students, yeah, we could say something like that for them. And quickly, let's do the same thing for the on-campus students. Right. And this could probably be the opposite of everything we've said for that one, but maybe there could be something different. So what do you think?
They are giving lecture notes, hard copy.
Okay, given hard copy
Brick and
lecture notes.
mortar class.
Again,
Brick and mortar class.
I'm having a hard time with
Brick and mortar class. It means they are on campus. They are within a building, structured building.
Okay. You mean brick and mortar class?
Yes.
Okay. I didn't catch that. Okay, so maybe mostly you can say in-person learning.
Classrooms or classrooms. So yeah.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Is there any other? Let's say we'll take two more and then we cut to the chases.
They live on campus.
They live on campus. Oh, okay. Live on campus. All right. And then oops, they live on campus. Then maybe they also miss home very much. They miss home often. Maybe. I mean, it's an attribute. All right. That was that's something. Okay, so let's just say that these are a few things about them, right? Because they are always on campus, they'll probably miss the home cooked meals and most of the things, right? So this just there. Okay, so now you can see that we have a student, all right, and then um, in the students there are other kinds of students, right? But then we can agree that everything that a normal student has, these guys also have. Just that according to what they do, like they have extra things that make them unique, right? So it doesn't mean that they are different, right? They are still students, just that they have extra things. So meaning that anything regarding students applies to them, then everything else that they also have, which is a little bit different. Okay, so now that's really all about what or everything inheritance are or is, right? So you see, so far when we're talking about what remote students are, we never mention that they have a name, they have an age, they have a call, they have a cohort, because well, why? They are already students, so we expect that they have these things, right? So they have everything that a normal human student would have, right? So that means that these guys over here, the students here, the remote students, or basically every type of student is a student regardless. And every attribute of a student applies to any kind of these students, right? So indirectly, they are inheriting the names, or well, they are human beings, so they have names, but then programmatically, that's what we say, that they are already inheriting the values of the, let's say, the parent students, right? So now we're going to talk about it in terms of the, let's say, the programming aspect of it, right? So we have students, or we have a student class, and we have some specific type of students, but then they still have everything that a normal student would have. So meaning that if I am a remote student, of course I would have a name, I would have uh, I have my age, I'll have the course I'm doing. I probably also have my cohort, right? So we are using cohorts for this particular one here. But when we inherit, we can also choose which things that we wouldn't use, or we can do something called overriding, right? Meaning that, okay, well, this one here is here, right? But then mine is a little bit different, right? So we would see how those things also go about. All right, so let's go ahead and then work with a few of these stuff. Okay, and as we do that, we would also talk about that UUID. So let me write it somewhere before we forget. Make it a little bigger. Yeah. Okay. So now we've sort of broken down what inheritance is. We see that it's essentially passing of valuable information or valuable possession to another people or another someone or bad in case or to another person. Okay, so now let's see how we can transfer this same thing to code, right? Now the whenever we are creating a class, we usually just do something like, let's say, class, and then we just say student, but then this student over here is actually also inheriting from like a default class, which everything in Python inherits from, and that's called the object. And to really inherit, we just have to, let's say, put it into brackets like this, right? So you find that mostly when we are creating classes, we just do this, right? But then if you want to inherit, we would have to put it into bracket and say that this is what I was, or this was what I inherited. So usually these guys all inherit from the base class called object. And I hope this drives the point home that everything in Python is an object. Okay, so everything in Python or any data type at all in Python inherits from the objects class. That's the first thing. So that is how it's able to do some of the basic things that we are able to use it for. But then here now we are trying to create a specific student, right? So let's say that our student is going to be a remote student, right? So all that's going to happen is we just say that this guy over here is really just a student, but just a remote student. But then he inherits from the student's class, right? So everything that is particular to the student, they are the attributes here, the things that the student can do, whether to be fair, to do whatever thing, they are still allowed to do that, or they have that features as well, right? Then later we can also have the specific things that is for them, right? So, but they study online. Their materials are usually hard copies. Their platform is this and that, right? So to keep things very simple, we would not do quite, let's say, complex things, but we would do enough to at least to break these concepts down. So now, I think the best way to maybe see this in action is to go ahead and then write a simple remote students class, and then let's see how this is going to work out, right? So you come to our terminal, then we go to this side, right? So at the bottom of this side, right, you can see that this is going to start getting huge very soon. So what I rather do is I'll copy all of these guys here, like the code that I'm using to test it, and I'd rather put it in a different file. Let's see, I'll call that driver.py. Oops, split on driver.py. Okay, then no, paste it in. Okay, and we understand that. Okay, well, I'm trying to do something in a different file, and I would have to import it, right? So here I'll just do a quick import. I'll just say from students, right? The name of this module is called student. So from student, I would like to import student. And this is the naming convention, right? The module is small letters, and then the class starts with a capital letter, right? So that's something that you should take note of. So now we would also have our separate terminal for running our code to ensure that it's working all right. So now that I have that, I would also change this to become executable. But before anything goes wrong, let's go ahead and then add our shebang before we cause any trouble to happen. All right. So let's see whether it's working so far. Oops. Okay. So this is all right. It's fine. I just left it out. I didn't include that or import that. Right. So what I'll do here is that I'll cut this and then paste it up over here. Right. So this is where we are using the date module. So I'll paste it in this file here. Right. So we'll be using this place as our, let's say, where we will write the code to test what we are doing here. Right. And then also this window is going to be our testing environment. Right. So yesterday we looked through and then saw how this is working so far. So now let's get back to this over here. I'll shift this to the right a bit left. So now, what I was saying is that we have this class already, all right? So for the sake of this, I'll put everything in one file, but we could have put them in different files, but I'll put them in one for the sake of what we are trying to do. So here, all that we do is to say class remote students, and then all that we do is say that it inherits from the student class. And for now, I'll just put powers over here, all right? And also, if it inherits from different classes, we can put them there like that, right? And the order in which they inherit is also important because that's how it's being searched. When we are searching for something in a class, it's searched in a tree format, right? So that's something that we should take note of. The order in which they are inherited is important. So now we have a remote student, and we have nothing there at this point, like nothing at all, right? Let's go ahead and then try to create a remote instance of this student, right? So I'll be moving here and there like that. Okay, maybe to make it easier for us to see everything, right? I'll have a separate window for like we would have the class stuff going on over here. Then over here we would have our driver code, just so that it will be separated, right? Then here's where we are going to be running our codes to see them, right? So we'll be popping our eyes from one place to the other. Hopefully we're able to follow up. Okay, so here inside of our driver.py file, right here, all that we're going to do is we are going to create different kinds of students at this point. So right down here, what I'll do is I'll create a student called remote student 1, and he is equal to remote student. So we are just creating an instance of the remote student. And the nice thing that we can do is that, right, it's going to inherit everything, basically everything. It's going to inherit the init method, the str method, the defer method, everything, right, all down to the class methods, everything that is particular to the student's class, this remote student is going to also get, right? So let's go ahead and then do just that. So here we will just say that their name is equal to, let me see whose name I used today. Okay, so I see Odo Rahel, right? And then their age, again, I'm going to use my superpower to get their age, which is true or not true, which is fine. And the program that they are running, let's just say, is project management, right? Anything here is coincidence if it is true. I don't know. And let's say for their cohort, let's say that they are in cohort 2, right? So again, from yesterday, you don't think only about ALX. We are just talking about it in terms of best things, right? So also, you see here, we are working with positional arguments. What we could have done is maybe so that it's easier for us to really understand what is happening, we could use keyword arguments. So I can say the name is equal to this, the age is equal to that, the course is equal to this, and then the cohort is equal to 2, right? And again, my my automatic line break keeps doing what it does best. Okay, so now we have a student who is a remote student, right? And looking from our remote students here, we have nothing there. We only have the pass keyword, which means there's nothing there at this point. But because we are inheriting, everything from the student's class is going to be ours. So let's try and then look at what is happening now. So here, to just see what is happening, I'll just say print remote student 1. right? And then let's see whether our code is going to work fine. Okay, so let's clear that and then write that. Oops. All right, let's see what is happening. It says remote students is not defined. Okay. I'd like to throw this as a question. When would something like this happen? Right. There's an error which is saying that like this is not working fine. But you see that for the students are being able to be run correctly, right? And as a hint, this is something particular with okay, well, I wouldn't say it. Does anyone have an idea of why this is causing an error? Like, yes, Valentine.
I guess it's because in the Moodle where we are in the file where we are using we are initializing remote students, it has not been imported. It is just the student that has been imported here. So I that's my own view of it, because it's just the students that has been imported here. Remote student is not imported here. The remote student class, that is subclass.
Amazing. Yeah. So that's a good point. Anyone think different, or is that the case? Yes. Kochuku. That's very right.
Okay. I think that in our base class we use a positional argument, but here when we are calling the object we use this thing. We use a keyword argument. So I think keyword parliament. I think that might be the problem.
Okay, so from your point, you are saying that if we take away the keywords, it should work fine, right?
Yes.
Okay, you try that as well. Any other thing? Okay, so he is saying that if we take away the keyword argument, it should work correctly. Valentine, based on your input, how can we fix it? Like the one that you mentioned, the one that.
Okay, so if we import, okay, if we want to import the class specifically, we can from the student module import student and the remote student, or we can import the module as a whole. We can import students as a
Also,
whole.
what would be
Like,
really?
yeah, so there are like two options that I would
Yeah. So which one do
suggest.
you suggest we use?
I suggest we import students and comma we import remote students.
Okay, so something like this, remote student, like that.
Yes, yes.
All right. So like the thing I want to do here is like you would have to own the answers that you are given. Okay, so first of all, let's try the method that Tochiku asked that we try. So I'll take away um, the keyword arguments that we used so that we would see. Maybe that's the issue. Maybe. Okay. Now back to here. When I run that, Tochiku, still the same problem. So I think I can safely bring back my stuff and it shouldn't cause a problem. Now, let's also look at this, right? And I think I'll be biased, and that's actually why the issue was occurring. We didn't import that class within this module that we are working with, right? Because we are working in a separate file. So we have to reference it so that we can use it, or to import it, or what we say in C to include it, right? So now, all that we just do now that we've imported it is you just go ahead and then run the code one more time, and it looks good, right? You can see that it's running it correctly, right? So hopefully we've seen something and learned something, that whenever we leave out the module that we are working with, you'll see some errors. And when you see a name error, that's, let's say, some of the places that you'd have to look out for, whether the name has not been defined. But if it has not been defined, how do you handle that, right? So, okay, so we've seen what the issue was, right? But then you can see that at this point, everything that we had for the okay, Ahmed, your hand is up.
Yeah. Just wanted to say I've seen Tochuku has been raising his hand, I think, for the past 10 minutes. I guess you can ask him what's wrong, maybe.
Yeah, Tochiko.
Okay. He has already attended to me. Yes.
Okay, then maybe you can lower your hand so that.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. All right. So let's go on. Okay, so okay. Your hand is up. All right, good. So we've seen that it's working fine, and I think yesterday we saw this, so I would get rid of it for now, right? That is captain's log day, and whether it's not or something, right? So here we can see that our class is able to inherit directly from the other class, right? Where we are able to see this, right? We are able to work with the class itself, and we don't have any problem, right? And as part of, let's say, working with these things, let's go ahead and then go to the Python interactive console. And what we will do is we'll go ahead and then we will import, let's say we do the same thing from students, import remote students, right? Then let's go ahead and then try something. Let's say that I'll do R1, just to say like remote student one is equal to remote student, and then I'll pass in some few details. Let's say Shiku, looking at it carefully so that I write it up. Okay, then the age is, let's say, 23. The program is software engineering. Then the cohort is, let's say, 1, right? Okay, so now we can see that this thing is created, but then when I do the type of this here, we expect that it's going to be of the remote class, like the remote students class, right? Now also when I check the instance, right, I can check whether it's an instance. Let's say I can say if this R1 over here is an instance of the student, and something is going to happen here, which I would also ask one more time. All right, so I'm checking if the R1 is an instance of the student, right? And if I do this, it says that student is not defined. What could be the issue here as well? Is it the same as the one that we just fixed, or is something different? Anybody? Yeah, Israel.
I think we should also import the student class. We only imported the remote student class.
Amazing, right? So also we just do from students, you go ahead and then import students. Okay, now we can go ahead and then ask the question. Right, so you can see that it is actually an instance of the students class. Then let's also go ahead and then try something again. Let's see, is it a sub class of that? So I would love to check student. It's a sub student class, right? And this is true. But then we've seen that if I try to do, if the student is a subclass of the remote class, that's false, right? So that is something that we would also have to take note of, right? So who inherits is the child, and then who gave it is the parent, right? So now let's go ahead and then work with a few of the things that we would like to give to this specific student, right? So at this point, we can see that we are inheriting the name, the age, the course, every attribute of the parent's class. Also, we're even able to like use this str method when we print it out, right? Also, as a matter of fact, what we can do is also, let's say, check for something real quick. We can say that we want this person here to defer, right? And then yesterday we did something that I didn't show. We said that if they are trying to defer to the same cohort, you just tell them that they can't, right? So let's say that this student over here, the remote student one, is trying to defer from their current cohort, which is 2. All right, so let's say we want to say that they want to defer. They want to defer to cohort 2, right? Just so that we can see it's happening the way that I'm talking about. So we want to print student 2, sorry, make student 2 defer to cohort 2. All right, so let's see how that is going to go down. So when I try this, it says that I can't defer to the same cohort, right? Now let's go ahead and then try the other thing. And also, I think henceforth, I think I'll just have to be doing this, or I might have to find an easier way to do that, but okay. So now we can see that also when we try to do maybe something like we want to defer them from cohort 2 to cohort 10. Now, when we come to this place and we run this, we can say that, oh, sorry to see you go, Joe Rahel. You defer to cohort 10, and you've chosen to start afresh, right? So the defer method that we wrote, we had a default option of them starting afresh. That is, start with the core that they are starting with. Or if you wanted them to start, or if you wanted something else, then they could have told us that, okay, well, I rather want to continue, right? So I rather want to continue, and then now if we test this out, we can see that now it says, and you have chosen to continue, blah blah blah, that, right? So we can see that so far everything that is particular to the student class is accessible from the remote students, right? And the thing I would like to point out here is that so far we've not initialized anything, or we've not added anything specific to this class, right? So now let's go ahead and then start adding a few things. So everything that was part of the class, sorry, of the student class, is particular to this class here that we are looking at. Okay, so now let's see. We talked about a few things that we will use over here. So we mentioned that they could be workers, they could be mature students, they do not study on campus, and they are like they have their studies online, and a few other things, right? So what we are going to do over here is we are going to do something specific, in that when we are defining, or we are creating an instance of the remote student, you would like to automatically keep the fact that their mode of learning is online, and then let's say they also like let's say that the default platform that they use to learn is, let's say, the intranet, just so that it's let's say just so that it's familiar to us. Okay, so here the mode of learning is going to be online, and then the platform that they use to learn is, let's say, the intranet, like by default, but they can actually change it, right? So now how we do that is by using some special stuff, which is a way that we can manipulate the thing. So I was talking about the fact that we can override certain things, and I think an easier way for you to see this is by using PyCharm. PyCharm has a very nice, let's say, interface where you can see like how the overriding things are going. So for here, though we like to use Vim and those things, I like to show something which is a little bit visual. So let me bring up my PyCharm, and then we would see that. So we are going to continue this same file, but then just that it's going to be in PyCharm. All right, so I would open it up, and then you would work from there. Right. The whole reason is so that you would see the that thing, which is the overriding thing. I think maybe that would be a little bit more visual, and it will make it a little easier for us to work with. So give me a moment. Okay. Okay. So I guess you can see the screen now, right? Also, let me know about the text. Is it clear enough?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
visible.
Okay, good. Okay, so now this is what we are going to do. We are going to like modify something, like something very simple. Then after we are done, we are also going to add something more, right? So here we see that the str method over here is going to give us like the name, or like would show us like, or it's what we are using to print out the details of the students in a friendly way, right? So there was something that I also wanted to share before we came here, right? So there's one thing here. Right? So let me share that real quick before we continue. So I can say import, let's say from student, import remote student, and then I could do R1 remote students, or do Rahel one more time. Then the age 28, let's say they are doing IT, and their cohorts this time around is 15, right? Oops, what did I do wrong? Okay, okay, there. All right. So now you can see that here when I do print R1, right, we are going to expect that it's going to bring us the exact same thing. Like we see that it's bringing us like that same thing over here. And then there's one extra thing here, which is called the like when we do the R1 here, we see that it prints it correctly because the string method, sorry, that's the print function. And please, if you hear me say function or method, it's the same thing, right? I'm being too careful with function and method. Okay, so you see that in the interactive console, what we can do is we can, let's say if I do something like a is equal to 10, I can just write a and then I'll see the value, right? Here, so when I do R1, you can see that rather, instead of showing me the details, it's rather like giving me this thing over here. right? And this over here is a different thing that we can override, but we wouldn't look at that yet. So at times it's either the str. So the str is normally used for, let's say, the user side. And then this other one over here, the method that returns this here is called the REPR, right? It's REPR, right? So we would also look at how we can also use this as a way to send information, or usually this is used for or useful for developers, right? So I just wanted to point that out. The fact that we have the str over here doesn't necessarily mean that we are going to have it like that when we are in the interactive console. So if you have the str method and then you are in the interactive console and you are seeing this, then that's a problem. So you would have to also define the REPR method, or to override it, so that it will happen. So we'll come back to this place for you to see. So now you can see that here, there's the thing I'm talking about over here. Yeah, all I'm trying to say is that down somewhere, this class has been inherited, right? Like this thing over here. You can see when I click on that, it takes me right down there. And then also here, you can see something like this. It means that I have overridden the original method that it was. So it's not the same thing again. That's been overridden, right? In the same way, some other function that we are about to write is also going to be overridden. And so let's go ahead and then do what I was suggesting. So let's say we are also going to have the same method, right? Like the same method that we have here, right? You can see that right after I do this, something has popped up here. So basically, we are overriding the function. So for this, let's say that I'll just say here, I am a remote student, right? That's all that we will do. And right after we do that, the next thing we will do is to run our driver code, right? Oops. Oh, sorry. You do not print here, right? I should return the statement. I should return it, right? Yeah, it has to return. My bad. Right. So I return that I'm a student, or I'm a remote student. Okay, so let's fix that. Right. Okay, so you can see that. All right. So for the sake of this session here, what I'll do is I'll comment out these other ones for now. Right. They are not useful to us yet. Okay. And then okay. So I'll print out this, and then also the student will try to defer. All right. So let's try that one more time. So I'll call that. You can see that here it says that I'm a remote student, but then when we were using the other one, it was printing out a few other things, and I think I would actually have to bring at least one of these back. Right. So at least one of these, just so that we can see the difference. So here, let's run that one more time. You can see that for the first student, there's one that is saying that like the one that is from the base student is this, and then here we have overridden the one for the remote student, as in the str method. So what we have overridden is what is being given to us now, right? So we understood that they are students, but then there can be specific things that a student can have. Okay, so that is why this over here, when we overrode it, it's able to give us this instead, right? But nobody would really want to have this, just this over here. So rather, what would happen is we can do something much better. We can say that, well, the value that we want to return is going to be the super, right? So the super here is the class that we are inheriting from, right? So we can actually say that we are going to, there are multiple ways to do it. Either we can use the name of the class and pass in the str like this, right? This is also something similar to that. We can say something like this. We would return this, right? And this over here wouldn't be very much different from, oops, sorry. What do we have here? Missing positional that. Okay, so let's try this driver. All right, so here you see that what we just did is something similar to what it was there before. So here we are not really overriding it. It's the same thing, but just that we are now trying to, let's say, add a few more things, right? So here we use the name of the class as in the parent class, and then the method that we are trying to call, and also the self in the sense that we are talking about the object which was instantiated from the remote student, right? But then one other one that we would normally use is called a super, right? So there's a super over here, and also has about the same thing, right? So here too, when we try this, let's go ahead and then try that with NI. Do that same thing again. That's, I don't think, right. Oops. Oh, sorry. I'm missing something. So I should rather do super underscore string str, right? So let's try this out here. Right. So I was missing out this bracket over here, that bracket. So this is similar to us doing something like students dot str, right? So these two are somewhat the same, right? So oops, like the first one that we did and this one are about the same thing. But right here you can see that still we are not really making any changes yet, right? And what I'd like to do is to maintain this one over here, all right? But then I would like us to add the extra detail that, well, they are a remote student, right? So what we can do, since this is going to return a string, is to, I'll use the F string over here, right? We are going to return this, right? And then the other thing I would say is that, let's say that the, let's say, student type, the student type is just going to be remote, right? So here we are basically hard coding the value. Now let's see how this is going to be returned when we run it. Right now you can see that now we have when we run the first one, which is from the student class, this is what it gets us. And then when we run this one from the remote students class, this is what we are getting. We are getting everything from the base class, and we're also getting something extra, right? So we have overridden the original function and then added something small, right? And this could be a lot more, right? But here we are just keeping it simple, right? So now I was also saying that okay, before anything more, do you have any questions so far about what we just did now, and maybe anything particular to what we just talked about, maybe with super or anything like so far? Any questions so far? Are we all good? All right. Okay. So okay. So that's one way that we can override the class. Okay. Or sorry, override some methods of the class. Okay. So here we see that like we have only overridden the str method, and it's giving us something specific to what we want, but it could be more, right? And before anything, I think PyCharm is giving us some information on what we can use. So I'll take it to simplify the comparison chain. Like yesterday, I was saying that we could have written this much better. So let's go ahead and then see what it's saying. Right. And this is a much more easier way to say, right? So we get dots isop, or basically we're just checking if the weekday is greater or equal to 5, or less than or equal to 7, right? So this is a let's say a much more compact way to write it, which is also doing the same thing, right? So that's what I was saying by that. There's a better way to write it yesterday. So now we also see that for the student threshold and the 75. But then let's see that since these people are remote students, and then one of the things that we were talking about is that they could be workers. What if we made it a little bit lenient on them, maybe? And since they're also mature students, you probably have to take care of the family. And if you had other things that a normal person, which is who is maybe not a mature student like that, wouldn't have to worry about. So that means that we can go ahead and then do something like this, right? All that we do is to just give it the same name. We just say that the threshold, right, is equal to rather 65. You can see that right after I do that, here gets that icon, right? That icon that I was talking about. So like I'm just trying to use this over here to like show that right after we do that, it's able to show us. And if I press or if I click on this, it takes me to where I have overridden, right? So and you can also see that here now I have two things. I have overridden the thing that it got it from, and then down somewhere I've also overridden, right? Meaning that this guy over here overrode or overrode, whatever the English is. So this was gotten from a superclass. And remember that we said that every class or every object in Python inherits from the object class, that base object class, right? So it has overridden that one. And then we also have a class that is inheriting from this student class, and it has also overridden this method one more time, right? So the reason why I just brought in the okay, you can just let me just bring it and see right here. So you can see that this in here is overridden. Maybe if it is not very clear, you see, right? I'm just showing that it's a tooltip. You can see that it's overridden in remove student. And then if I hover over here like this, you can see it overrides method in object. And that object is the base, like the most base class that everything in Python inherits from. All right, so that's just about that. And we can also see that here we are overriding the threshold. All right. So now when we come to our driver code and then we check something real quick. Let's say if we check, let's say print remote student one threshold, you can see that it's going to be this. And just so that it's easier, what I'll do is I'll use the F string to do this thing here with that specific trick that they have for us. So remote student is the threshold is equal to this. And then also the other thing I'll do is I'll say that I'll print the normal student one, the threshold is equal to, right? So this over here is going to print it out in a specific way that makes it look a little bit more easier to work with without having to print or like to work with a few things that we wouldn't want to worry about. Okay, so here, if I run my code, okay, let me comment this one out. Okay. Driver, right? So I can see that the student threshold here, that for the normal student is 75, and then the one for the remote student one is 65, right? So we've overridden that threshold that is meant for the normal students, or let's say any student at all. But for remote students, they are going to have a threshold of 65 because we established that maybe they could be mature students or they could be people who are not very available like that, right? So we are trying to be a little bit lenient on those people that their threshold that they should meet is 65, right? Which I think is is lenient, right? So like when we talk about overriding stuff, that's all we are doing. We take something that is already available and we just override it. That doesn't mean that that's all we can do. We can also define new things for this particular thing or for this particular person. And one of the new things that we can do is that we can define how they are, or we can redefine how these classes are, let's say, like, you can redefine how they are instantiated, right? So currently, it's using the original instantiating method where it is going to just do name, age, course, and cohort. But right, what if we wanted to keep these details as well? The one that we said we want to keep the like the mode of study and then the platform that they will use for the study, right? So what we can do is we can actually go ahead and then modify the init method, which is used to initialize the classes. Right? So we can go ahead and then say def initialize, right, like this. But then once we do this here, we are going to, in effect, do what again? We are going to override, right? But then we wouldn't want to like miss the other things that the the parent class is giving us. Right, so we can keep that, right, and then do a few more things. So what we can just go ahead to say is, let's say that for the init method, we can just say something like this, right? The same thing like super.init, and then we will pass in the different things that we want to give it, right? You can say all these things, right? We'll give it the name, those things. Right? So here as well, let's just go ahead and then say this is going to be name. We are going to have the age, the course, the cohort, right? And as part of this, we are also going to have, let's say, study mode. Right. So there's going to be particular to this student, right, or the remote student, and the study mode is going to be online, and then let's say the study platform, or let's just say the platform. Platform is going to be, let's say, Zoom, right? Now, we wouldn't want to like lose lose a few of the things that we already are getting. So we can say that, well, for the things that are already given to us, we still want to keep it. So we want to call the original init method that we inherited and pass it the usual things that we would normally give it, right? Cohorts and all those things. Right? Then, right after this guy has finished giving us what we need, then we can go ahead and then set our own instance attributes, right? So now these attributes are the ones from the student class, right? But then here we have these specific attribute that is like for the remote students themselves, right? So that's what we are trying to do over here. So we just say self.study mode is equal to study mode, and then self.online platform is equal to platform. All right, so this goes to show again from what we were discussing yesterday that the parameters over here doesn't necessarily have to match this. It can be anything at all, but then usually we just make them this way to make it easier to just work with, right? So it doesn't have to be the same, but it's usually the same just for the sake of keeping it consistent. All right. So now we have this here, right? We have self.study as a specific instance attribute for this year for the remote students, and then also the online platform for the these people, right? So we can see that so far we've done a few stuff, right? So let's see how this is going to work so far. So currently, I wouldn't change anything inside of this place. I'll just try to run the code that we have so far, and let's see if there are any errors. All right, so there are still no errors, right? There are still no errors so far, and I think we should also keep track of this student type and hard code it. So let's do one more thing here. You say that student type, right? What do you think? I think. Okay. Well, I'll just put like the remote there just for now. Right. Let's say the student type is equal to student type. Right? So maybe we could have a different way to handle this, but I didn't want us to like. Yeah, Humphrey. Any thoughts?
I was asking, you see the way you defined the threshold is equals to 65. Is it possible to
Yes.
to put the student type the same as remote, because it will always be remote? I'm just asking if it's possible.
Can you repeat that again? Your voice was not very clear.
Okay, sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I was asking, since the student type will always be remote, is it possible to define it as a class instance, like the way you defined the threshold is equals to 65?
Okay. So you are saying something like you would do something like let's say student type here.
Yes.
To rather be remote. Like that.
Yes.
Okay. That's also one way to go about it. Right. Yeah, I think that's also cool. Right. Yeah. So then I think what do you think if rather this student type rather goes all the way to the top of the base class, so that we would be inheriting it easily from that side, right? So that's also one way that we can do it, and I think it's also a very great thought to mention. So I would get rid of this one here, and then this also would have to go away. Okay, so we've just seen that there's also one way to go about that, right? So now that we have that, I think we can go ahead and then rather change this to be to use the attribute itself. Let's say that's going to be self.student type, right? So we can use the self.student type, or we can actually refer to the class and that, but we just leave it like this way. And we could also have this same thing at the top of the base class or the student class, right? But I think we will leave it here for now, right? So now I think now that we have these information, students for these would maybe have to change a little bit, because we have a little bit more information about them that we would like to add, right? So instead of just printing out this one, we would also probably want to keep track of their study mode and also see their the platform that they are using to learn, right? So we can write a full-blown string method, or if we still like the one that we already have, we can augment it, right? Basically to update it, to augment rather than to write a whole new thing. And that's really one of the cool things about using this classes, right? So as part of that, what if we say something like this? We would like this here. So for the sake of making it fine, let's say we'd have here extra info is equal to an F string of these details, the student type, their study mode, and that's going to be the self the study mode, and then like the study platform. I think study platform and using Zoom is not very fine. Let's maybe use intranet. That's what we agreed to use in the beginning. So then that's going to be self.online platform. Oops. Okay. So odd shift enter. They're not doing anything. Okay. All right. So here we have some few information, and I would like to add that up to this one over here. So we are basically augmenting the results we get from the super or the base class. Then we add up this extra information. Hope that's clear. Yeah, Humphrey.
Okay, sorry. I think I've forgotten some concept. I would like you to elaborate.
Okay.
In the extra info, line number 52, the student type, self-dosed study type, is it a class object, or will it pick it, or you should directly call it from the class? Instead of self.study type, we do remote student.study type, or it will just pick. I'm just asking. I'm not sure. I forgot these concepts.
Yeah, true. So we could either call it from the remote student, or we can call it from this way, right? And because like you see how it's cross. So when we are working with the class, it sort of looks for the information in a tree form, right? So even if we do the self, it would still find its way to that one, right? But
Okay.
then you can also write it this way, right? But since like you can still reference it through the instance, that's why I use the self.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
You can just itself.
Yeah,
Thank you.
but there's also problems still.
Thank you
Yeah.
for that.
So, okay, so now we have this one over here. We have added some free information, which might not be looking very cool, but like it's just to show the fact that we can be overriding stuff and adding, or let's say augmenting them. Okay, so let's go ahead and then check this. All right, so now you can see that for the new student that we have, we can see a few more details than the one for the normal students, right? So their study mode is online. The study platform is intranets. The type of student is a remote student, right? So basically, when we're talking about inheritance, we are just inheriting things, and then let's say picking the things that are still useful to us, and then overriding what we wouldn't want to use in their normal state, right? And there are some things that we would inherit that we would never use, and that's also fine. Okay, so we could have also had a different class which would maybe inherit from the remote students if we have, let's say, a subset of remote students who are also not, let's say, like we have specific students who are in the remote students class, then we can go ahead and then make it even more like minute for them. Right. So every time we have these things, we think of it like in broad terms. Then as we go, we use, let's say, more direct, or what's the word, to like to grab them like at the place that like we can actually mm, I can't get the word, but basically you see that maybe when we look at it from the broader view, we can hone into like the specific things. Right. So the more specific we want, the more we can go into that. So we can have one that spans across everything. Then if we have specific needs, we can go ahead and then write classes that would inherit from the general purpose class and then make it more specific, right? So here would probably be where we would put our inheritance, but then again, we can also have a specific method for this new thing over here. So you can write your own class for them, right? Let's see if we have anything else for them. Okay, let's say that here we can have a function called let's say asks for materials, right? Okay, rather let's say check online materials, because every student must be able to check like ask for materials, but then let's say we rather do check materials. And then yeah, all that we do is say checking for materials. Right, like we'll just leave it at that, not something very crazy, just something very small, right? And then in our test code here, we can check something like this. We can say remote students dot check materials online, and then you can go ahead and then try that. And then here we have checking materials online. So this function or this method could have been much more sophisticated, but for now, that's all that we would use it for, right? So that would be, I think, everything for, let's say, inheritance, at least at this point, right? But again, there's more to that. So if you already have something that is useful to you, you don't have to rewrite everything. You can basically augment it with what already exists in the same way as we just did this one. We first of all call the initial init method, then we add the extra things that we also want to be specific to this here. So in essence, you can say that we have two init method, but you probably wouldn't say that. Right? So when we are initializing the remote students, we call the superclass init method first. Then we continue ahead with what we want to have for our specific remote students. Right. So any questions with this one so far? Then after here, we will just see how to let's say serialize and then deserialize in very simple formats, and we would continue from there. Any questions? Yes, I'm free.
Thank you. I'm sorry I joined late. Could you kindly explain? I joined when you had already written the code for the static method. The static method decorator. Could you kindly elaborate on what that does in a minute? Thank you.
All right. This static method. All right.
Yes, and class method.
Okay. So the static method over here, what we are saying or what we used it for yesterday was that there are days that we would have to work with the captain's log, but when we talk about static methods, right, you can think of them as the normal functions that are not part of a class, right? But then if you have a function that happens to be within a class that doesn't depend on like the instances of the class or anything that is particular to the class, then it's usually let's say, a static method, right? So what I'm trying to say is that, right? So okay, well, let's put this as well. Anytime that you have a function that you realize that you never use the self or the anything, or like you never reference the instance, or you never reference the class, then it's a good option to use a static method over any other method. Though you could have still made it like a normal instance method, but then like that's, let's say, how you would know whether you should use a static method or not. When you, in any of, like in the whole of your function, you never use self or CLS, right? So for instance, here you can see that there's no mention of the self or the class or anything of that sort, right? So this whole function here could have been something just like this. It could have been just a function that's is somewhere outside here, right? This function here, it's like, let me just add some few lines of spaces here, right? So this is like a normal function that we have, something like this, right? But then this function, let's say, found its way into a class. So since it's within a class, we can't just leave it like that. We want you to say that it's a static method in a sense that its behavior doesn't depend on whether the method has changed or whether the class has changed. It is just a standalone function, but then due to some grace, it found its way into a class, right? So that's for the static method. It's just a normal function within a class that doesn't reference the class nor the self or the instance. And then for the class method, what we are doing is that sometimes, for instance, what we're using it for is this threshold here. Right? We have this threshold. So if you want to modify something that is specific to the whole class, we can't use the instance methods to modify them. We would have to use a class method. So if there's something specific that the class would have to change, like for the whole class has to change, then our go-to is a class method. But for anything that is specific to the instance or the object that we instantiate, that's when we use these normal instance methods, the one with a self. Right? But for things that need to modify the class itself, that's where we use the class method. Right? So hopefully maybe like this clears a few things. Does that help anyway?
I really got it. Now, for example, in this case, since you inherited the threshold and give it another value in the remote student class, so in this case, it's the class method which is helping to make it, to change it.
Okay, so you're asking if it is an update threshold that is helping to change it.
Yes.
Okay, no. For this one over here, we didn't use the update threshold. We just manually overrode the class attributes here. Right. We just modify the value here. We just change it to something else. All right. So that's what we basically did. We didn't use the update threshold, but we could have also done that, right? But then here we just manually just modify the class attributes to be this, right? This another way that we could have gone through, but then within this class, since it's also inheriting, we can go ahead and then let's say, okay, for example's sake, currently it is 65, right? So if we check this here, we can see that it is 65. But then I can go ahead and then call the remote student one, and then, okay, because it's a class method, I would have to call it on the class itself. So remote student dot but update threshold. And let's say now maybe their performance is coming up, so they are going to be on 80, right? So now I'll go ahead and then print these two things again. So let's check that again. So now you can see that now for the okay, let me probably add some. Let me add a new line. All right, so you can see that now the remote students threshold is 80, right? And the other one for the normal student is still 75. Okay, so that's that over there. So in the class here, we basically overrode the actual class attributes, but later we can just go ahead and then use the method that we have to also do other things like you just saw us do. Right.
I understood it.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Okay, you're welcome. Ahmed, I saw your hand raised.
Okay, okay. Just wanted to say, can you please zoom in your terminal a little bit?
Okay. Let's see. I don't see zooming.
Only if it's able.
Let's see if that's going to be possible. I don't see zooming stuff here. Don't see zooming
I
in
don't know
my
if
usual
Control Plus
zooming.
will work.
Nope.
Okay, okay, sure. Okay, let's just continue.
Okay. All right. Like, I would actually go back to the terminal though. Yeah, I was just trying to use that to show the overriding things so that maybe that'll be a little bit easier to see. Okay. So that's it with like the overriding thing and inheritance. And I mean, there's a lot more that we've not even talked about, but I think this is going to be enough for a recap. Right. So let's get back to our terminal and work through there. Right. Here's more control. Okay. Maybe let me try that one more time.
Yeah, no, this is better. This is better.
All right. Yeah. Someone gave like a suggestion, so I'll like try that real quick to see whether that's going to work. Oops. Okay.
It's like it's not working.
Nope. Nah, it's not really. Nope. All right. Thanks for the visit, but it's not working over here. Okay. So let's. Oops. All right. So we've seen these things for a while, and let me just go ahead and then break this into separate lines, right? Because it's getting very long. Okay, and then here, so we put that into a separate spin. Okay. Okay. So just trying to be on the 80 line spec like 80 characters per line thing. So let's just ensure everything is still working. Okay, still working. All right. So now we've seen the thing with inheritance, and we've also seen that every time that we inherit, everything is still available to us, and we can add new things to it. Right. Now, the thing that we would like to see is that every time that we exit out of this place, everything we've done is going to go away, right? This student one is going to go away, student two is going to go away, student one is also going to go away, right? So what we don't want is that we want to rather keep it somewhere, right? And there are many ways that we can do that through databases or file storage, and that's what we are going to talk about today. What is file storage? But before we can do that, we have to serialize it. So basically saying that we are going to make it in a way that is going to be possible to save, right? So when we are serializing, we are taking that information and then converting it into a readable format that we can save to, right? Which is going to be in the JSON format. Right? So and then when we have to read it back, then we would have to bring in the deserialization, meaning that we are taking it from its raw form and then bringing it back into an object format, right? So to do that, we would have to use a few things here called like we would have to use the JSON module, right? So we've used this module before, so we just have to do import JSON, right? Then for this one, what we will do is we'll put it inside of the inside of the main class, which is the student. So for the sake of this meeting, if I say base class, please, I mean the student class. It's easier to say base class than student. Okay, so all right. So now the method of doing that is in these forms. We have the data we would like to work with. Then we will first of all take it into, let's say, an intermediary form, which is going to allow us to save it to something else. So let's say, well, let's say we have the objects. Now we want to save, right? And we want to change it to something particular, right? So the JSON that we are trying to work with, it works with a few things, and without that, we are not going to be able to work with it. So I'm just trying to bring it up. Come on. Not that. Okay, so let me just try this one more time. JSON. Okay, so the JSON thing that we are trying to work with, it works with just a few things, right? So it's only able to work with the string, the like those are the things that it's usually accepts to work with, right? The string, the integer, the float, the boolean, and a few like these data types, right? So if we have a different kind of data, it's
Hey, guy,
Hello?
hey guys, is
I
it my
don't
internet
know if
connection?
someone is hearing because I'm not hearing Maxwell.
Or same here? I thought actually it was my internet connection. Hey Maxwell, hey Maxwell, hello. Okay, maybe it's the internet connection. Let's give him some minutes or some seconds while he. Let's see. Hey Maxwell.
I think it's his network. Just let's, I think we can wait a little.
Yeah, I think yeah, well, okay. Okay, Israel, will you continue with the session while he comes back?
I don't have the resources he was using. I don't know if he had other things to say.
Yeah, yeah. The
Okay,
session
so
was okay. Just say what you want to say.
yeah, I wanted to say that if we can wait a little, or yeah, let's just wait, or someone can contact him. I can contact him. Maybe he is speaking, but he doesn't know that we are not hearing.
Yeah, I actually think that's the case because if it was the internet connection, he could have already logged out. But since he's still here, I think maybe he's talking, but then he doesn't know we can't hear him.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. Let me try messaging him on WhatsApp and then we'll see.
All right.
Yeah. I think it's the internet connection because he's offline. So, but then so far so good, right?
Sorry, I wasn't hearing you.
Okay, I'm saying it's like it's the internet connection because in WhatsApp it's like he's offline. So I think he's just coming back. Let's give him some minutes. But then so far so good, right?
Yeah, I mean, it has been a great session.
Yeah. I was actually taking notes. So okay, let's give him some 2 minutes when he's not here yet. Maybe I can say some 2 to 3 things about Jason. Because now I think what you wanted to talk about was serialization and deserialization with Jason.
Yeah,
That is, yeah. So let's give him maybe some 2 minutes, and then in case he's not here yet, maybe I'll say something while we wait for him.
all right.
Hello. Sorry, I just want to ask something.
Okay,
I've
sure.
joined here. I've joined here today. I'm asking, when do you have these sessions? I'm quite learning a lot from this session.
Okay, it depends actually, because we are two groups here today. We are here
Yes.
today. We are two groups here, so I think Maxwell is back. Okay, maybe we'll talk about that after Maxwell is done. But then,
Yeah, Maxwell is.
yeah. So Maxwell, hey Maxwell. I think it's still
He's
the
having a
internet.
terrible network tonight.
Yeah, I think it's the internet connection. So, okay.
Am I audible now?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we
Yeah.
all do.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, amazing. Okay, so I was just trying to say that when we have Python objects, you would have to first of all like take them into, let's say, dictionaries, or like into a format that is available, or into a format that JSON allows us to work with, right? So if we try to, let's say, for now, okay, for now, let's try to do something uh, to just see what would happen. Right, so I'll just do import JSON, right, and then also do from um, student import, um, let's say import remote students. It's remote students. Okay, so I'll just create one student real quick, and okay, let's just do Messi, and
Yeah, me too. I
they
can't
are.
see your screen. Actually. I don't know if.
Oh, sorry. I should have shared that. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, I think it should be up now. Okay, good.
All right.
Sometimes I assume. Okay, so the age, let's say, is 25, and the program is IT, and the cohort is, let's say, 6. All right.
The students the okay Ebog.
Uh,
I
yeah,
just wanted to mention that the students there was no D.
yes, and actually, it should have been remote student. Yeah, thanks. Okay, so now when we are talking about the JSON thing, right? There are two ways that we can work with it: the serialization and then the deserialization. So when we are using the JSON thing, right, according to the documentation, so this is what we have here. We are going to serialize object to JSON formatted string using this conversion table. So this conversion table. So if I click on that, you can see it over here. Right. So that means that if you want to serialize some data, we would have to use the JSON.dumps. That S over there is basically JSON.dump string. All right. So that's what it's just trying to say. So let's see if this is going to work all right. We have an object which is here, and then we are also going to try to work with it to like convert it from the object to a JSON string. Valentine, your hand is up.
Yes, I want to ask, is the recording still on?
Yes.
Okay, you have to confirm.
Yeah, that's one of the advantages of like the teams. It keeps on going. Right. So now let's go ahead and then try something. I'll just say JSON.dumps and then R1. You can see here it says that the object of type remote student is not JSON serializable, right? So that is why I'm trying to say that we have like like the order in which it has to go. If the data we are trying to serialize doesn't happen to be in any of this table, right? Like if it's not within this table by default, then there's going to be a problem, right? So they have mentioned what it allows you to work with. So let me go back to that side and then go to that table once again. So this conversion table. So this is what it allows by default, like these kind of data types. So if we do not have these data types, we or do an interim, let's say, we can go ahead to do. Sorry, looks like the network is really going to be a problem from now. It has like some time that it just has its own mind. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Oh,
Yes, we can hear you.
it stays up. Okay, so yeah, around these times, I don't know, my network just has its own mind. So okay, so let's say numbers is equal to, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Now, if I try to do the same thing with JSON
I can't see the
dumps
screen.
numbers.
Your screen.
Oh,
The screen.
okay. I'm bringing it back on. Yeah, it was shared, but looks like maybe because of the disconnection. Okay, hopefully it's up now. All right. So I'm here. I'm trying to show that if I have a list, and I try to do JSON or data, and oops, sorry. This one of the things that you'd have to note. There's the dump, and then there's also the dump s or the dump string. Right here, I was using this one, which is a different method. So let's go ahead and then run that. Now you can see that here it works all right. There was no problem. Okay, so because a list is a JSON serializable object. So now the thing that we have with the R1, right, is that inside of this one over here, we can use the dir command to figure that one out. So we have the dir, and there's this thing over here called a dictionary, right? For the class, there's a dictionary which keeps track of all the attributes that we have in there. So you can do something like r1.dict, and you can see everything that is there. You can see that the name is Messi, the age is that, right? And this looks like a dictionary, right? And according to what we have here, a Python dictionary. Oh, come on. A Python dictionary is allowed in JSON, right? So that means that, well, we can use this advantage and just, first of all, or we can as well just say that like we want to serialize the dictionary part of the data that we are trying to work with. All right, so just to try that, I can say JSON.dumps r1.dictionary, right? So here the remote student is a normal Python object, right? It was something that we created, we derived it. So now when I do this, you can see that it's looking all right. It didn't show the error that it showed previously, right? So I would have to we would have to use this one. So we first of all convert it to a dictionary because we will need a JSON serializable object to work with. Right, so that's what we are doing. So we first of all serialize this to, or or we will first of all, let's say, get the dictionary version of this, and then work with that. And so far, we've seen this function before, where they ask us to do a to dictionary method. So let's just do that for convenience sake, just so that like the user wouldn't have to worry about knowing how to work with that. So down here in the students class, you would have an instance method called to dictionary, and you pass in the self, and all that we do is we say return self dot dictionary, right? That's all we will do, right? Then the other thing that we can do is we can go ahead and say something like this. We just want a function that would save them, right? So we want a function that will save this to a file, right? And then to save this to a file, we want to save it. Let's say like if it is a normal student, you save it as student.json. If it is a remote student, you say remote student.json in that format, right? So we can go ahead and then say that, let's say, save the file. We've seen this similar function before, right? And I'll write it in the normal way. Then later we can come back and then figure out whether we would want to use some of the things that I'll be putting over here. So I'll just put self over here for now. And then what I'll take in is going to be, let's say we are going to receive the dictionary, right? So here, what I'll use is going to be the quarks, right? It doesn't have to be quarks like this. I'm just going to just say that I want a dictionary like that. So like the name doesn't really have to be quarks all the time. So now what we will do first of all is let's just go ahead and say with open, right? With open and then the name of that. So what I'll do here is rather say self dot, right? So let's see whether that's going to work well. So here we have this here. We want to find the class that it belongs to. So if we do self dot, sorry, r1 dot, you see class like this, we have that, right? Is this, and we would like to extract the name of the class from it. So we want the class of this guy over here like that. So we are going to receive this, right? So that's what I want to get. So we want to get the class name, then we will append .json to it. So that's what I'm trying to do here. So for the sake of this, I'll just put it in f-strings to make it easier to work with. Okay, so self.class, then this here like that. Then we'll do underscore JSON, right? Then you can just say that it's going to be the file or maybe the JSON file. Right. Then the other thing we just do is just say this thing here. So there are two ways to do this thing here, right? We saw the first one here, which was the dumps, the DUMPS, which is this here, which will serialize object to a JSON formatted string using whatever table that we just saw, right? But then there's also the other one here, which does something different, a little bit different. It also takes in the object, but it takes in a file pointer, right? And the file pointer is where it's supposed to save it to, right? So here, the FP, which is a file pointer, has to have a supporting file-like object, like the file that we are talking about here. All right, so we can use that over here as a means to work with it. Okay, so so let's just try that. I can say that JSON.dump, right? Then the JSON file, which is this guy. Oh, sorry. Let's look at this again. It first of all takes the object, then the file pointer, right? So let's fix that. So it takes in the dictionary, then the file pointer, like that. Okay, so let's see how this is going to work. We are going to basically pass in the thing here, and then hope that our file is going to be created, right? So let's do that. But there's one thing I'm missing over here. I would have to open it for writing before we get into any trouble. All right. Okay, so let's try that. And there'll be one thing that we may get into, and I'll see if maybe you would have an idea about that, or something that we would have to go into. So let's get into this part here now. So here, I'll just, let's say, have this in here. So I would remove the thing that we are printing for now. Okay, so now what I want to do is to say that let's say our std dot underscore date is equal to remote student 1, remote student 1 to date, right? So that we would get the dictionary first of all. Then you can also go ahead now and then say that remote student one dot save to file. And what you want to do is to pass in the dictionary. So we are passing in the dictionary in this form, FCD date, like that, right? So once we are done, we expect that we are going to have the file called remote student.json. And to show that at this point, I don't have any file called remote student.json. So let's see whether that's going to work fine. Okay, so no errors came so far. Let's see whether we got the file. Okay, that's the file over there. Let's check to see whether it's really what we expected to have. So remote JSON, and looks like everything looks fine, right? The JSON file was written nicely. We see that, right? Like to confirm that, if we go into the Python interactive console and we like print it out, we can see that. But what I'll do is I would also print out I'll print the dictionary that we received from this side to see how it was, right? So let me just get rid of these printing. Okay, so we run the driver. Oops. Oh. Quick one. I removed too much. Got to remove students. 1 dot text, like that. Okay. So to date. Okay, yeah, so you can see that when I print out the dictionary that we got, this is what we have. And then also now when I print out the remote JSON file, there's the same thing that we have like here. So here we have serialized the data into a file, right? Now we can also go ahead and then deserialize the data that we have here into a new object. Okay, so to do that, there's another one that we use, which is the load. Like the load also has the load and then the loads. Okay, so the load here, like the load S is for load string. The other one is similar to the one we just structured. But then someone else could have also done it in a different way than we did over here. But this is also valid to work with, right? So someone could have probably maybe done JSON.dumps and then put it inside of the file, as in to write it to the file. It's also valid, but since there's a function to do it, I use it. Okay, so that's this method here is the serialization part of it. Right. Now let's talk about the deserialization part of it. Are we okay with this one so far? Like how we were able to get the name of the class and then use that as the file name and a few other stuff. Is that clear to all of us? Okay. All right. So
Yes.
now
Yes.
let's.
Okay.
Okay, great. Okay, so the other thing that we'll do quickly is to also take this information here and then transform it back into an object, right? So let's say that here we have an object, like we've created a file, right? So now what I would like to do is to, let's say, open the file and read from it, right? So let's say I can do something like with, before we do that, let's make sure that we are guarding it. So with oh, come on, with open remote student .json, and we are reading it, so we don't necessarily have to bring in that R over there. So here, what we need to we can do here is to use this over here. We have two options, either to like use the JSON.load, right, which is similar to something like this one over here. But for the sake of this, let's just read it like a normal reading thing, right? Let's just read like a file, right? So let's just say we just want to do the content is equal to JSON file dot, let's say read, right? So then after we read it, let's just try to print the content of this, right? And then in the case of any errors, we will handle it. I just do nothing, right? So let's go ahead and then try this option. So we're just going to print the thing. So yeah, what I'll do is I'll just hide this one for the moment. Okay, so driver, and you can see that still when we print it out, it's been printed out fine. But the thing that I would like us to see here is that here the content of this, the type of this content is it's a string. It's not a dictionary as we think that it is. It's a string, not a dictionary, right? But then if you want to convert this back to a dictionary, then we would have to deserialize, and that's what this guy is doing. It will deserialize the string that we are looking at, right? So when we serialize, we converted it into like a string, right? So inside of the file is really just a string. Now, when we load it, or when we load the string, we are loading it and then we are converting it back to how it was before we serialized it. Right. So let's go ahead and then see how that is also going to work in. So now the other thing we do is just to say that instead of JSON.load, rather what we say is the content is equal to JSON loads. Then we are going to pass in the read, right? So let's see how this is also going to look like. and check something out real quick. So driver, oops, nothing came up here. What did I miss here? I'm probably missing something. Okay, first of all, let's do this. Let's read the content first. Let's read the content, and then let's say now let's get the JSON content. What is going to be JSON?
Is anyone hearing?
No, I can't hear him from this end. I think we lost him again.
I think it's network. I thought it was mine because I wasn't hearing him.
I think his network. His network.
Oh. Maybe we can wait for him. Let's see if he can rejoin. Because I think currently his screen is up. Who has left? Okay, maybe he wants to rejoin. We just have to wait a little, and maybe he might join. Ahmed, are you hearing me?
Yeah, sure. I can hear you. So what do you
Guys, be
guys think?
patient. Be patient. I think he'll be with us shortly. Network. I'm in the same country with him. Sometimes the network, just messes up.
Oh. So it happens towards this hour, like this hour of the day.
Whew. Sorry, once again, it's itself. Let's see. Yeah, so I also realized, I mean, sorry about that. I mean, the network is just not very friendly around these times for sessions. That's why normally I like to do it early around the afternoon that side. Yeah, but I realize that I'm making some mistake over here. Right. So shall we debug it together? Right. So here this is what I was trying to do. First, I read the contents of the file here, which is this guy. Oops, sorry. I'll fill in the content of the file that we just work with, and I'll second the type of it, just a string. All right. But then let's see, when I try to do something like, let's say, the JSON content is equal to, let's say, JSON dot loads the content about, and I try to print the JSON content. Add any line, and then also try to print the type of the JSON content. Then I get this, nothing. Right. So why do you think that is an issue? And like, is there something that I'm missing out? Right. I mean, according to what we are seeing here, they are saying that if we give it a string, it will deserialize it. Okay. So let's see how that is going to work. Yes. Israel.
Okay, I think since we are reading the file, we should add the read option, like the arrow.
The R. Okay.
Yeah,
So the reason why
I
okay, so the reason I didn't add that is because if you don't add it, it is implicit that we are reading. That's why I didn't add that.
oh,
Yeah. So what's the other thing that could be the issue? Right. So again, if you look at this here, they are saying that this is how they are going to convert it to or to deserialize it. And looking at this, we see that if it is a string, it's going to return a Python string. If it is an object, it's going to return a Python dictionary. So any more brain ideas on how to make sure that after we've successfully seen how to serialize it to be a string, but then we are trying to deserialize it so that it will come from that side to this side, right? So that's what we are trying to do at this point. Is there anything that we are missing out that we should, like, let's see, like, focus on before we try anything else? Anyway.
sorry. Okay.
Could we see, could I see the code, please?
Okay, yeah, sure. Yeah. Can you see it?
I think your video travels slower than your voice. I don't know if it's affecting only my end, but I listen. Your voice is faster than the video itself. That's my end.
Well, that's what. Okay. Just like for me, my thunder strikes before the lightning comes. Yeah, I mean, you see, like thunder is sound and like.
But it's not supposed. It's not supposed to be so, because the lightning is supposed to.
Yeah, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
mine is a little different. So, Clark, are you seeing something that you like to share? I mean, all of us here have worked with this one way or the other, right? So here is, let's say, a bag. Let's try to fix it. Let's see how we can go about it. Let's please go ahead.
Okay. Hello. I want to try. So I'm not
It's
sure.
Okay, Humphrey, could you hold on for a while? Clark would go first.
I haven't consistently been here. So, like, if Humphrey could speak, but the question I was about to ask was to when we printed the content, was there an output? Did it give an output? Because if we give an output, then if we didn't give an output that whatever we read from the JSON file, from the point or the representation file was empty. I don't know.
Okay, there were some areas that I was missing out, but what I heard was you are asking if when we printed out the content, it was empty or not, like just the content like this. Well, it wasn't empty. So here's it. If that's the
Yes.
question you're asking. Yes. So if I print out the content over here, which is a string, it is not empty, right? It's valid and it's available here. Yeah, but it's when I try to uh,
Okay.
get a JSON representative of that. That's when like we get nothing. Yeah, so that's what we are trying to fix. Yeah.
Hold on a bit, Slam. I'm still going through the code.
Yeah, Humphrey, would you like to try now?
Okay. I was trying. Okay, it's another approach. Maybe if we use JSON.load and then pass in the file object instead, and then we try and see if it can work.
Okay, so I should rather do JSON.load and pass in a file object. Okay, so for that, then I would have to do then so something like the JSON.load and then pass in the file object, which is the JSON file, like that.
Yes, JSON
Right.
file.
Okay, let's try this out. Nope, nothing.
Ah.
Right. So, yeah. So what else are we missing? Okay. So we had the
Hello?
Yeah, please go ahead. Like you're saying something. Hello.
Okay, sorry. Never mind.
I think your voice is breaking up.
Sorry.
Like you are breaking up. Could you try again? Like your voice was not very clear. Hello? Hello. Anyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi. Hi, we can
Okay.
hear you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Personally, I've not worked on this realization, and that's why I don't really have something to contribute. I just started working on the project today, and this realization part I understand, but this realization I haven't really worked on it.
Okay. So how about you use this sense as a way to debug it, right? Like I personally don't mind if we have to use this session to debug this one. I mean, from here you would, I think, would have learned something which is much more better. Right. So is that really something that I'm missing? Like maybe there's something I'm missing now. Don't you think so? Because like, okay, first of all, here's the thing, right? If um, the writing to the file works fine. So let's say I would remove the JSON file, and if I do ls again, you can see it's no longer there. Now I run that, and I do ls, it's here. I cut the remote file, and it's still there, right? So in the background, I was changing a few things, but still enough to be that's right. So I was saying that we can either write it like this, right, where we say we use the right method, but I found this one too long, right? Because we can just use the dump over here to do the very same thing, right? The behavior is the same thing, okay, but the other one is to convert to the string before that. But then here's the thing: like, we have written to the file, all right, and then we are trying to read back and then work with it, but it's not working. And this one, I would like it from all parts here. So this is probably the last thing we do before we. It has to be done before we go. So why is it not working? Because I mean, if you do the load, it doesn't work. So okay, for the sake of anyone looking, let's say if what if we try to do this instead, like to do JSON.load, we pass in the counter, then we read it, right? Let's see what you think might okay. That doesn't work, right? So what are we missing? Like what is getting missing at this point?
Sorry,
Yeah, Humphrey.
do we need to import JSON in this place?
Don't we need to import JSON? Is it here? We didn't import JSON.
We yeah. Don't we? Oh, look at us. Look at us. Okay, so now we have JSON imported. Now let's go back to try that. Yeah. JSON is not imported, right? So, okay, let's go through the normal method first. So let's say JSON.loads that, right? And let's try this. Now you can see it's working. So the thing here was that we hadn't imported JSON, right? And we saw that from the last time. But then here it was very silent. It wasn't saying anything, right? So mostly these ones are just things that are there to just sort of tease you a little bit, right? Because I mean, we saw that I mean, you can, the reason why there was no error too, you can see that when there is an exception, I don't print anything out, right? So it was making things a little bit more harder. But I think Humphrey, right, was able to see that we actually didn't have the, or before I give the credit to who it was Humphrey, right? Was it you? Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So that it was the reason that we weren't we hadn't already imported the JSON file. So and also the fact that I just silently ignored any exception that were going to be raised. So those would have made it easier for us to see what the, but that wasn't what I was looking for. I wanted us to like suffer small, right? Yeah. So you can either load the contents this way, or there are quite a lot other ways to like load it, right? Either to depending on how you want to work with it. Either you would load the file first, or you load it directly, right? And this is much more compact and does the same thing. So now we can see that the thing is returned back to us in the way that it was. All right, so we serialize, then we have deserialized, right? So we took it into the first one, and the reason why I'm saying that is okay, so to make it maybe a bit more easier to see, we just say JSON.file.read. So sorry, JSON file, and I think maybe I'd rather just say file just to keep it simpler. We this content over here is going to be a string. Like we've not deserialized yet. Now, when we go ahead and then we say that equal to the JSON.loads content, and we can go ahead and then print the same thing for JSON content and the type of the JSON content. In between there, let's put some new lines there. All right. So now if we check the driver, or when we run the code, you can see that the serialized version is a string, and then the deserialized version is now back to the dictionary that it was before we serialized it. All right. So within this function here, we have the to dictionary, which first of all retains the dictionary. Then using the dictionary, we serialize it to become that. Right, so we could have used different methods in how we use this one over here. Maybe we can find another way to do this, right? But in a simple form, this is how we would do serialization and how we would also do serialize, right? So let's also see how we may like convert from one side to the other. But like the thing here is just simple like this. This function that we have here, we could, or not function, this code that we have here, we could put it into some method so that we can use it as a way to work with that. Right. So let's say here we have save to file, or we can call this dump to file, or so for this other thing we can do is we can say let's say load from file, right? But essentially that's how we handle this serialization. So also the other thing that I wanted to mention here is that like when you are handling errors, you may be silencing a lot of errors that doesn't need to be silenced. So sometimes when you're going through that, you may want to like open things up to see what is happening, right? This could have been a very long debugging session if Humphrey hadn't mentioned it. I probably wouldn't have said it. So the culprit was just we weren't allowing any errors to be printed out. So sometimes you have to look at those angles, right? Because everything we were doing was right. We were writing the right commands because, I mean, the documentation was right there, and we were looking at it was correct. But the fact that we weren't right was causing that error. All right. So I think we've done a lot for today. We've like spent a lot of time talking about the inheritance and this one as well. So just so that we don't have to burn our brains, let's hold on for now for today, and let's use this time for question and say answers or any clarification that we would want to have, and then hopefully maybe tomorrow we can work with the command line interpreter. So any additions or subtractions to what we've done today? All right. So again, there are